There is a tiny apartment on the 7th floor of an old residential complex in a densely populated area of Tokyo. It is so small that from the front door, you can only take a few steps to the bed. But when a young woman crosses the threshold of this home after a long workday, she instantly feels her shoulders drop. Her space breathes with her. There is not a single unnecessary thing here. Every surface remains clean, and every object has its quiet and invisible place. She does not spend a single second looking for keys or clearing the table for dinner. Her nervous system instantly shifts into a state of deep peace, because her home works as a reliable mechanism of recovery. And somewhere on the other side of the world, in an apartment of the exact same size, someone else returns home and feels their heart start to beat faster at the mere thought of having to open the door. This person sees mountains of unsorted clothes on chairs, piles of papers on the table, and shelves that literally scream from being overloaded with things, creating an incredibly heavy physical and emotional burden. The weekends of this person turn into an endless cleaning marathon that exhausts all their strength, but in just 3 days the chaos inevitably returns, bringing with it a bitter feeling of personal inadequacy. What if the difference between these two people has absolutely nothing to do with how much time they spend cleaning or how naturally organized they are, but completely depends on a few almost invisible habits? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why small spaces so quickly turn into traps for our minds, how traditional organization advice only makes the situation worse, and how you can permanently stop this cycle of clutter. Before we move on to these brilliant Japanese solutions, we need to talk about a poisonous idea that we carry inside us our whole lives, and which makes us hate our small apartments. We have been convinced that the problem lies exclusively in the lack of square meters, and that if we had one more room or a larger closet, our lives would instantly become perfect. The Western space organization industry makes billions on this fear, selling us the illusion of control in the form of complex storage systems, vacuum bags, and plastic containers. Write right now in the comments how much money you have spent over the last year on various beautiful boxes and organizers that were supposed to solve the clutter problem, but have now themselves turned into a source of chaos, hiding inside things you never use. We are used to blaming ourselves for the inability to maintain order. We call ourselves lazy when we look at a bedroom cluttered with things. But your stress and your constant relapse into chaos is absolutely not your fault. It is a direct consequence of a system that teaches us to organize garbage instead of getting rid of it. When you buy a new basket for things you do not need, you do not solve the problem. You just package your stress in a beautiful wrapper, leaving it as a heavy burden in your space. You think you are fighting a lack of space, but in reality, you are being quietly, drop by drop, exhausted by the visual noise generated by hundreds of unnecessary objects around you. But this is only the first domino in our understanding of how space affects the human psyche. In Japanese philosophy, the attitude towards small spaces is radically different from the Western one, because there a limited area is considered not a punishment, but an opportunity to create absolute emotional clarity. The first step to this clarity lies through the KonMari method, but we must discard all the stereotypes about simply folding t-shirts into even rectangles that are so often talked about in popular shows. The true essence of this approach is much deeper. It consists in recognizing the emotional weight of every object that crosses the threshold of your home. When you live in a small space, everything competes for your attention. Every souvenir, every unread book, and every old sweater constantly emits an invisible signal that your brain is forced to process. That sweater you bought 3 years ago and never wore is not just a piece of fabric taking up space on a shelf. It is the materialized feeling of guilt for wasted money that you see every morning. Traditional methods teach us to hide this sweater deeper in the closet, but Japanese essentialism teaches us to take it in our hands, acknowledge that it no longer serves our joy, and gratefully let it go forever. By discarding the unnecessary, you do not just free up space on a shelf, you remove a massive psychological weight from your shoulders, allowing your home to breathe again. And here something else happens, something almost no one talks about when giving advice on organizing small apartments, and which is the main reason why clutter always returns. Western culture is obsessed with the idea of massive transformations. We wait for the weekend to arrange a general cleaning. We spend 10 hours in a row, bringing ourselves to complete exhaustion to make the apartment perfect. But when Monday comes and we return from work tired, we have absolutely no energy left to maintain this perfect state, and the system instantly collapses, leaving us disappointed. If this approach and the realization of how visual noise destroys your energy has already changed your perception of cleaning, subscribe so you do not miss the next unobvious habits that return control over your life. The Japanese avoid these exhausting marathons thanks to the philosophy of Kaizen, which translates as continuous, almost invisible improvement through microscopic steps. Kaizen teaches us that you do not need motivation to maintain order. You need a quiet, invisible engine of daily habits that require so little effort that your brain does not even perceive them as work. Instead of cleaning the room for hours, you implement the 1-minute rule, according to which any action that takes less than 60 seconds must be performed immediately, without thinking and without postponing it until the evening. This rule works like absolute magic in small spaces, where even one cup left on the table can create a feeling of clutter in the entire kitchen. You drank coffee and immediately rinsed the cup. You took off your coat and instantly hung it on a hook. You took out a document and immediately returned it to the folder. These microscopic movements merge into one continuous dance that completely eliminates the friction between you and your home, turning the maintenance of order into a basic reflex, just like breathing. When the KonMari method has freed your space from the unnecessary burden, and the Kaizen philosophy has started this quiet maintenance engine, your small home turns into an impenetrable fortress against any chaos. Traditional storage systems force you to perform 5 or 6 actions to hide one thing. Pull out a drawer, open a box, take off a lid, put the object in, close the lid, push the drawer back. The Japanese space design dictates a rule of zero resistance, where items of daily use must return to their places in one smooth movement, without meeting any obstacles on their way. This removes the invisible burden of constant microcontrol. Your brain receives a signal that the environment is safe and predictable, and it no longer needs to waste precious resources scanning for chaos. This synergy of two philosophies teaches us that space is not a storage container for our past, but a living instrument for supporting our present state and peace. You begin to understand that every object in your apartment must pay you rent in the form of joy or absolute functionality. Otherwise, it is simply stealing your living space. You no longer need to fight with your home, turn off your emotions before a general cleaning, or feel ashamed when guests arrive unexpectedly, because your space is always in a state of quiet readiness. Your tiny apartment stops seeming like a cramped cage and transforms into a cozy capsule where every detail supports your nervous system, healing you from the stress of a noisy world. Allow yourself to stop this endless battle with things. Discard complex systems and plastic boxes. Let go of the burden of the past and implement the magic of 1 minute. Your home will begin to function invisibly, quietly, and flawlessly, returning to you the most important thing, the freedom to simply be yourself in your own peaceful sanctuary.